Welcome once again to another joint presentation of Friends of Native Art and the Bill Holm Center of the Burke Museum. I'd like to remind everyone that wherever we are in North America, we are on indigenous lands. And for the majority of us who are probably watching this from the Puget Sound region, we are on the historical and ancestral lands, traditional lands of the Coast Salish people, and who are still here and still thriving in this area. So tonight we are very pleased and honored to have a representative of the Coast Salish people speaking to us tonight. We have Andrea Wilbur-Sigo from Skokomish Island. She is a very well-known and distinguished carver and artist in other media as well. She has several public monumental artworks that either have been installed or are about to be installed around Chicago. Before we get to her talk, I'd like to just make a couple of other announcements for the benefit of the FONA members. Well, actually, for the benefit of the Bill Holm Center affiliates who may not know about FONA. FONA is an organization whose official name is Friends of Native Art. We sponsor a lot of activities and programs related to indigenous art, particularly Northwest Coast art, including joint programs such as this with the Bill Holm Center, but we also have programs independently. Our last program was a travelogue photo slideshow from a recent trip some FONA members took to northern British Columbia, to the lands of the Tsimshian, Gitxsan, and Nisga'a people in the Skeena and Nass River valleys up there. We also do some local trips. Last year, we went up to see Dan Friday's show at the Northwest Art Museum, if that's what it's called. We've done some other local artist visits. So if you're interested in knowing more about FONA, you can send an email to fonaseattle@gmail.com. That's FONASEATTLE@gmail.com. For FONA members, I'd like to remind you of a couple of things we've got coming up. We have our annual holiday party in person for the first time in 3 years on Saturday, December 3rd. So if you'd like to come and you haven't responded to the announcement yet, please dig out that announcement from your email and respond to it. I'd also like to remind you that we are hoping to organize a repeat of that trip to northern British Columbia for next summer for people who weren't able to make it last summer. So far, we've got 8 people expressing interest, so I think it's pretty likely that we'll go ahead. So if you think you'd be interested, respond to that announcement as well and let me know. And now I will turn it over to Bridget Johnson, the Associate Director of the Bill Holm Center, to give Andrea a more formal introduction.
Thank you so much, Bob. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a lovely evening. I know it's only 7 p.m. here in Seattle, but it feels like 10 p.m. because it's so dark. But yes, it's my pleasure to welcome Andrea Wilbur-Sigo this evening. Andrea is a member of the Skokomish Island tribe and is the first known Native woman carver of many generations of carvers, and started out with beadwork and has since learned such Coast Salish art forms, including bentwood boxes, welcome figures, house posts, masks, panels, button blankets, twine, twill weaving, and basket weaving, which I hope we're going to be seeing and hearing more about tonight. And Andrea has recently worked with master carvers such as Lauren White, Susan Point, Pete Peterson, Joe and George David, and Dempsey Bob. And she has earned awards from the first annual American Indian Northwest Art Show, the Hurd Museum, and the Washington State History Museum, among others. Andrea is an active member of her tribe, volunteering her time and artwork for several community events, including being an active member of the Tribal Museum Board. Andrea also teaches Coast Salish art classes on a regular basis to children and adults of all ages, keeping this tradition alive. And so welcome, Andrea.
Good evening, guys. Yes, I'm a member of the Squaxin Island tribe, and I am a mom of, I have 7 children of my own, and together we actually have 10 kids, 9 grandchildren, and I'll be having my fifth grandchild will be being born this spring. And tonight I want to share just a little bit about where I started, a little bit about my past, where I'm going, projects that are getting ready to be put up, and a little bit about not just carving. Carving, of course, is what I do primarily, but I started my career off as doing beadwork. By the time I was 8 years old, I was shipping my beadwork worldwide, and so we're talking, 40 years ago now. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. I put together a bunch of pictures, and we'll talk about that in 1 second. Let's see if I can get this. Okay. So like I said, at the age of 3, I started doing beadwork. That's my first memory of actually doing artwork. And by the time I was 8, I was shipping it to Germany, Hawaii, California, and I would get off the school bus and do different pieces. These here are pieces that I recently did over the last, 3 to 5 years. And they're a combination of the beadwork that I know, and then new technology and learning how to draw on the computer, learning how to take my designs to a different, I'm not going to say level, but to a different medium. I'm using the same traditional medium that we've always used in our shells, but being able to draw it on a computer and then turn it into laser carved pieces and adding beadwork. 2 of my daughters ended up actually becoming, right now they're doing beadwork on a full-time basis. So it was kind of fun to go back, in time, 40 years, and go back and teach them how to do it. And so these are some old designs from our basketry, some old spindle designs, some designs that I used for our Veterans Memorial that you'll see in, here pretty soon. And this one here in the bottom right-hand corner is Skoke Dog. You got fern designs. With that, I also have been weaving since I was about 3 years old. Bruce Miller, at the age of 3, started teaching me in the Skokomish Tribal Center. Not only am I from the Squaxin Island tribe, but I actually have ties to just about every tribe here in the Washington state and in South Dakota. So these designs are mostly seen in the Skokomish basketry. And I do a lot of research on a lot of our old elders, Louisa Pulsifer, to name one, Emily Miller, of course, Bruce Miller. And this one up in the top, actually, both of those pieces are in a show right now in Olympia at South Puget Sound Community College. But they are blankets I made for my children when they graduated. in our town here in Shelton, when our kids graduate, we have them usually wear a button blanket to show that they've successfully graduated from high school. And when my kids were really little, as much as I'm a seamstress also, and as much as I love doing button blankets, I really wanted to bring back the fact that traditionally we did weaving here. And so when my kids were itty bitty, I would always say, if you graduate from high school, I will take the time to weave you a blanket. So these are fully twined, and actually my daughter's has a little bit of twill work on it, but for the most part, fully twined, which means one stitch at a time, blankets that I spent weaving their senior year. Also, the piece in the center that is the mask basically above the weaving is a piece that my kids and I worked together. So when they were pretty little, I started teaching them how to dye wool. And that meant going out and gathering. The whole neighborhood would go around and actually pick out different flowers and come back to me and say, what does this make? And we turned it, they didn't even realize they were taking all of this and learning a science. And so it was really fun to watch these kids experiment with what nature, what time of the year, what soil it was coming from, all these little things that would change the color you would get. But needless to say, my kids and the neighborhood kids all gathered all of these different plants, and we hand dyed all of it. And then I wove this piece, and it actually belongs to my daughter, my second daughter. When she moved out, she took the piece with her. So, these are two other blankets that I did, and this shows where I kind of get where I do a lot of my studying. This comes from, I think it comes from Intertwined, this actual picture does. Just, going back and researching, looking at all the old baskets. I'm really fortunate to have quite a collection of our old baskets that have been handed down. The one on the left is my son Carver, he's 6. This was this year. I actually did this one this spring for his preschool graduation. And the other one is my daughter when she graduated from preschool, but she's now 19. So these are 2 different blankets I've done. And that basket there is a Louisa Pulsifer basket. This is, ultimately what I do this for is all these people. This is my family. This is my daughters up in the left corner. Me and my son, he's now 25, they've all grown up literally at my footsteps and are in the shop every day. That's just how our family is. The little guy carving at the bottom is my 25-year-old son. When he was little, that was his first carving. And then of course, this one here, that last one was my daughter and son. This here is me and my son, Robbie, when I was working on Chief Seattle's grave monument. They all learned to walk and talk and everything else in my shop. Florence, my 19-year-old, that was at my first welcome figure raising. And all of my grandchildren, or part of my grandchildren, I should say. My youngest grandson here in the, oh my goodness, hold on. Hopefully it'll go back. No, it's not going back. Why? Sorry, guys. Anyway, well, that was, I don't know why it's not going back. Hold on. There we go. Okay, sorry. Anyway, yeah, these are all my grandkids. My Uncle Pete Peterson, who is my grandpa's, he's my great uncle. He's my grandma's brother, his wife. This is all from this summer, just trying to do projects. And everybody, actually this top one on the left was me and my son-in-law just yesterday. So as you can see, it's just a way of life here at our house. And this is how they learn. This is how I kind of grew up. This is how all of my kids have grown up. And this is how they learn to be artists in their own rights. These are the elders I learned from. Up on the top right-hand corner, it's Louisa Pulsifer. She left a basket collection to die for that you can walk into almost any museum, and me knowing my baskets, I could spot. I walked into the Heard Museum one year, and I spotted her basket all the way across the entire room. And my husband's like, "What?" And I said, "That's Kaya's." And not only because of the way it looks, but to me, it's just the feeling you get when you are in the presence of her work. And I am really fortunate to have about 5 baskets and a couple rattles, a basket rattle, which she made for me before she passed. The one in the center is my Uncle Pete. He's a carver. He is now like 85, I think. And that's with my youngest grandson. He was here to visit the Welcome Figures this summer. He came to visit for a while. And below that is his sister, my grandma, and my grandpa Bert. And off to the left, this man is, for those of you who have done studies of the people of the Sound, this is Henry Allen. This is my great-great-grandfather. He was one of the main informants to work with Myron Ills and William Elmendorf, and did a lot of studies and documented a lot of our history, which we're really, really fortunate to be able to go back and have those stories documented. For the first 15 years of my life, I was really lucky enough to have his daughter firsthand be my teacher, and that's my Kayama. And he was actually born in my dad's born in 1955, so he was born in 1854 to 1856 is what we figure. And he actually remembers being moved from our Longhouse site to the reservation. So it just hasn't been that long ago when you figure that I had his daughter be in my life for the first 15 years of my life. And if anyone ever wants to do more research, if you go to Tawana Narratives, there's it's a really good book to read a lot of information about the Skokomish and Skokomish, Swakson, Chehalis, there's Suquamish, all the local tribes. There's little stories about a lot of them. So to be a carver, one of the very most important things is to be able to either access good tools or to make good tools. And for the most part, I make most all of my tools. These old pieces that you see in my hand and up in the left-hand corner are actually old adzes that my son-in-law found on our beach, right here in our area. And before he married my daughter, he came up and he told me, "I have to give you my 3 prized possessions." I have walked those same beaches. I find nothing. This kid is amazing. He has found so many arrowheads, so many different points, and to find 3 adzes is just darn right amazing to me. But he gifted those to me, so they're definitely one of my prized possessions now, and they will go probably to one of my grandkids. But this is, to me, it's where we started. This is what it's all about, is this continuing. And now I'm taking and using the old logger saws that my grandfather, he was a logger. So it's kind of funny how we all evolve, and taking those old saws that the molecules aren't as complex as what they are in today's new steel, and actually shaping, heating, and softening, I guess, to make tools to be able to do what I do. And the whole thing is you can't buy a tool that does what we do. Some of the tools, like these are old adzes. There isn't a tool that's been made that can actually make the marks of an adze. So you have to learn to either get connections to buy good ones, which there's a few places that make pretty good tools, but in all reality, the best tool is going to be when you make it and you know what you want your tool to be. Because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the other. These are 2 that my husband and I made together. I carved the handles, and he actually shaped the blades themselves. And they're old axes, really super old axes that you have cut in half, and then you have to reshape them. And what those tools do, I should include that, is when you're making this texturing, which I'll show you in a little bit, it's actually sealing the fibers to make it waterproof. And so without that, it's letting all the water get in and not protecting it. So not only is it making a really pretty surface, but it's actually protecting the piece of wood. So these are a couple of my welcome figures that I did really early on. The one in the center is actually my very first welcome figure. I did approximately 16, 17 years ago. And it stands at South Puget Sound Community College here in Olympia. When I was asked to do it, actually the elders of our tribe came and asked me to do it, and I had never done one. And I was terrified because when I'm making these pieces, not only am I representing myself, but I'm representing my entire community and Native people as a whole. So it's a big responsibility for a carver to do one of these pieces that are going to stand in public. And needless to say, I got partway through it and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I was lucky enough to have Lauren White. I gave him a call and he came down and he was like, let's do this together. And we did. And we worked together for years. Anytime I had a question, to this day, you know, he's getting up there in age now. And to this day, he still comes down and peeks in to see what I'm doing, just to see what I'm doing. And but we walked our way through that one, and he came over and said, okay, this is how you do it, now go for it. And he left. And so I did a lot of trial and error, but it was the beginning of an amazing last 15, 16 years. And these two on either side actually are the next two that I had done. And they're the entryway of Skokomish's first hotel up there. And I was really lucky. Skokomish, when I started out, really stood beside me and encouraged me to continue carving. And I did a lot of work for them. I did a lot of teaching with their kids. By this time, I had already done panels, bentwood boxes, rattles, but these big pieces are what I really wanted to do. And I was probably about 8 years old, I guess, when I went up to UBC and I seen Bill Reed's piece. And I always said, I'm going to do these big public pieces one day. This is what I want. And so to watch this all come full circle has been really amazing. These are some of the panels that I've done. They're anywhere from 36 to 42 inch round, depending on the size. Some of them are replicas of some of our old spindle wheels that you probably have all seen. The one in each top corner are old spindles. And of course, they're my own twist of those old spindles. I always like to look at those old pieces and ask myself, if I was that artist and had one more time to recreate, what would I have done? You know, knowing the rules of Salish art form, knowing, you know, because I do it with my own personal designs that aren't replicas. And I have some of those designs that I've worked on for 20 years. And every time I do it, I'm like, I would have changed this. So I like to look at those old pieces, learn from them. And those two pieces are at the point where I couldn't change them anymore without having a totally different design. And you don't want to do that because in all rights, they're just the most amazing pieces that we've got to learn from anyway. Along with that, this was the very beginning of doing some of my glass work. And I also here in the do etching. I started doing a little bit of gold leafing. I think I only did a couple pieces of gold leafing. And then we did a slumped piece. Actually, that was my mom and I had done a slumped piece together, and that's the spindle roll that's down on the bottom. So you actually go in, sand carve that in different layers, and then put it in a kiln to have it slumped to make it an actual feel of a spindle roll. So 15 years ago, when I started getting into glasswork, I decided I would start doing stuff on the computer. Might have been a little, give or take 15 years. That was hard for me to do because I had always done everything with a pencil, a knife, you know, a paintbrush. So going to this whole new technology, I will admit I was probably one of the biggest artists to kick and scream about technology. I didn't want to do it. I was good with a paintbrush, didn't need to go any further with this. But then after playing with it a while, I realized, you know, it was just using this new resource. But living in a really small community here in Shelton, computers, things like that wasn't something I grew up with. And I became a mom at 17. So really where everybody else my age was getting used to computers, that was not my thing. I was hands-on, a weaver and a carver and you know, I drew and I painted. And then all of a sudden the possibilities of what I could do with a computer kind of were like, this could be fun. So these two pieces were the first two pieces. I really wanted that flat design, something to look more three-dimensional and not just by shading. You know, I wanted it to actually look like it was a carved piece. And it took a lot of, actually, I just got in the truck and drove around thinking, how do I make this look right? You know, because I'm self-taught when it came to that part. And a lot of trial and error. And what I didn't know is that other family members were trying to figure out the same thing. How can we make it look three-dimensional? And literally about 20 minutes down the road from here, it dawned on me, quit thinking like a graphic artist and think like a carver. So I did. I came home and I started thinking planes. I started thinking shadows. I started thinking all the things that you look at and you try to reproduce with a knife, but now let's reproduce them with a computer. And so they were really exciting. They were fun to actually figure out how to do those. And so this is a sea serpent and then raven and sun. So with technology, it also opened up a different avenue that I just started doing this last year. This is a piece that I did for Kraken. Their training facility up north. And they came to me and said, you know, they had a very short amount of time to get something done. And would I be willing to look at it? And so I came up with a couple different ideas. And luckily she came back and said, well, what if you did metal? And I was like, you know, I haven't, but I can. And so I was able to take what I knew with the computer and draw what I wanted, do it to spec, do it, you know, knew exactly, went up there, measured things off, came home, drew it, and then went to the fabricators and said, this is what I want to do. So we took their logo and made the paddles, which represent the 7 generations that we're thinking of, and then the hockey stick to you know, for the hockey. But they're a really neat organization because they're what is it? Something roof. Can't think. One Roof Foundation actually is working at trying to get, you know, kids in there and doing healthy activities and keeping them busy, all while, you know, keeping an eye on the climate. And everything they're about is exactly what I'm about. You know, me being a mom, I kept my kids really busy in activities. So it was a really fun project to work on, and then playing with lighting. So if you're ever up that way, that's a fun piece to go see. With public pieces, about 12 years ago, this was one of my very first public pieces I had done, and this is for Brightwater Treatment Facility. It is a it's 18 feet tall in the center and approximately 30 some feet across. And its grandfather's wisdom, which is octopus. And in his tentacles, he has his babies, all of his babies. And basically there's a story of him going, being under, of course, underwater world, and him wanting to bring his babies home. So he flaps his tentacles and gets the phosphorus going to show the bait, to lighten up the water to bring his babies home. And then on the left-hand side is Thunderbird, and on the right-hand side is Killer Whale. And what that represents is a skeleton of a longhouse that might have stood there way back when. And in front of that is paddles that represent each and every one of the tribes of Washington State. Since this picture has been taken, we actually decided they wanted yellow cedar paddles. So we replaced all of those cement paddles with yellow cedar paddles last summer. And then here's on the top is a close-up picture of the actual carving details. So some other pieces that I have done is up on the top left is Chief Seattle's grave monument for Skokomish. That one was an emotional piece to do and a huge honor. When they decided they wanted to get rid of the, it was time to take down the canoe. It was just at that final days. They came to me and asked me if I would tell the story of Chief Self. And we worked together, the elders and I, from Skokomish, and we put together telling the story of pre-contact when he was younger, and then contact, and talking about the big house that was there, and went back to really old school things that you will see on all of our old pieces, like personally, I see them as being stars, like the circles with the circles in the middle. Everybody has a different story and a theory. I have yet to really see anything that was documented on what they were. Looking back though, we all had them. I mean, from here up to Alaska, we all had the same symbol. And after a lot of thinking, I like to go back and I guess think about what my elders told me, different stories. And then they taught me to think outside of the box. What do I think? Where's my brain go? I went to stars. That's what I think they represent. But I can't be 100%. That's just my theory. And then next to that is Skokomish's Veterans Memorial. I did a couple Veterans Memorials a few years back. I did ours, which is on the bottom, Squaxin's. I did that one first. And that one's right in front of our museum. And that one also, I worked with our elders and had them tell me the story. What did they want to depict, and how can I put it into our written language, which is our artwork, And so I sat and I listened to all their stories and listened to Glenn Parker about his elk trips. We were really doing a huge revival around Squaxin with weaving. And we wanted to bring in, of course, the colors of the flag. So it was, and then also colors in nature. So it was really interesting. We took the weaving designs, but yet if you look at them, they are red, white, and blue. So it was a really neat collaboration between me and them. And then each one of those paddles are bronze paddles with the name of a veteran in our tribe, deceased and living. And we have enough room to continue to keep adding to that. On the bottom left, I did that piece about 12 years ago also, and it was, it's for the Seattle Cruise Terminal. It's 2 18-foot houseposts or welcome figures. And then later on, I went back and did a piece that goes between the two, so it looks more like an entryway. So there's actually carved there. And on the right-hand side is a 10-foot welcome figure. I ended up, it was actually one of the first pieces I did that I just really, I wanted to finish it. And my husband, actually Lauren, had started this piece, and the wood was so bad. It was rotten. It was checked. There was bugs in it. And, you know, we've come to a time right now where if you can, we have to fix what we have. We have to use the resources we have. Our old growth isn't here like it once was. Even in my, 20, 30 years of carving, well, it's been 30 years now, 30 years of carving, it's changed so dramatically. You can't find what we once had. And so we had to, my husband's really, really good at it. And luckily, and we had to learn to take the bad wood out and put new wood in. So that piece, when he brought it home at first, I was like, I ain't doing it. There's no way. That thing's awful. He was like, I can do it. And so he did. He took the whole insides of the leg out. He replaced that wood. He took the piece, like through the hat, through the face, through the center of the chest where it's all dark in here. He took all that wood out. He replaced it with good wood. And it ended up turning out to be one of the most beautiful welcome figures that I've done. It's just, I think, just because I know what we have to do. And part of it is super, super emotionally sad that we're even at that place. But another part of it is, I guess, knowing that we're going to be the generation that teaches our kids that this is what we have to do. This is the next step, is that we have to take what we have and make it usable, so that they can continue to do what we've always done and make these pieces. On the left-hand side is two 18-foot house posts. Skokomish came when they hosted the canoe journey, and my goodness, can't even remember what year that was. 2010, somewhere in there. They came and they decided they were going to do the community house, and they wanted to see if I would do the two welcome figures that were house posts that stand in the front entryway. And so at that point, I think they were my second 18-foot house post that I had done. And not only did I do them, but we actually worked with a bunch of youth up there and some other tribal members. They came down, and it was a teaching progress or program too. So we had a lot of fun. Barb Santos, one of my best friends, came down to work with me with this one. We did a lot of late night carving. So, and then the ones on the right-hand side are two that I've admired the old pieces. They're a T-style house post. I've admired them since I was a little tiny girl looking at them in books. And I decided I was just going to carve them and then figure out where their homes were going. And they ended up going to the youth center at Nisqually. That's where they ended up going. So. And these are little otters. So cute. So this is a piece that is getting ready to go up. We're not quite sure when yet. It should be up by spring. But this is going downtown Seattle on 2nd and Yesler. She is 20 foot tall. She's Grandmother Frog. We just actually got word yesterday that SDOT has given us 100% approval on all the permitting and stuff. So now we're just getting ready to do the foundations and stuff. But she is actually going to Chief Seattle's, it's low-income housing development that they have down there. And so I wanted to share that with you guys. Let me see if I can move. And to get those pictures, that's my son up there on the roof taking pictures from down below. She was a big piece. I actually, to get this log was another task in itself. We actually had to bring her home from Alaska. So my husband went up to Alaska 2 times, and we had this log barged into Seattle. And at the same time, I brought home 3 other logs, so a total of 4. And her front of, this is the first time I actually carved the weaving. So it represents our twill weaving in her skirt there. This is a piece I did this last year for PCC Community Market down on 4th in downtown Seattle. And yeah, so this is Underwater World here. And then of course, Land World here, so. This piece we did last, it was put up this last fall. My goodness, I guess it was the fall before last. So it's been a little over a year now. And it's the East Side project in Olympia. So in Olympia, we have this project that's going on that where the neighborhoods, it's a neighborhood project where the neighborhoods meet. And so we had this one's one of, I believe there's going to be 6 different projects or something like that. And so I was chosen to do one of them, and we're doing one, I think they're doing like one a year. So these are 10-foot house posts. And again, I looked at some old pictures and went back and took what they had of some old house posts and then changed them into what I thought we should make them. And that was a fun piece. So this one represents the water world, and this one represents the tree world. So these 2 pieces are actually the ones that will be going on. She's going to go up, Creator's going up on December 5th is the plan as of today. And he will be going up on December 6th or 7th. And they're going to the Washington State Convention Center to do new entryway project. So they're 16 foot tall. This just shows a little bit of what I do when I am actually creating them. I go back to our old pieces. This is an old piece that I believe was found on Harstein, or one that was found like that on Harstein. And then I recreate it. This is going to actually be in yellow cedar though. And the creator, she actually was a project I started thinking about her when I was pregnant with my youngest son. I believe it was either my youngest son or my son prior. And the importance of our women in our community. And I had never seen a pregnant welcome figure. And I was like, you know what, this would be fun. This is something, you know, that tells an important part of who we are and how we're here. Without our women in our community, we wouldn't be here. And so my original design was actually her being a fisherman, because not only am I a carver, but I'm actually the oldest active diver in our tribe also. I've been diving for 25 years. And so the connection I have with our underwater world is something that most people are, don't get to have, but I've been fortunate enough to be able to. And so originally it was going to be a harvester, and she was going to have salmon in her basket. And then I started thinking about it. And I actually, as a little girl, was put into a baby board and hung on a tree while my parents did a lot of fishing. And so I ended up putting a baby in her basket. So, and while doing all of that, of course, I still find the importance of teaching my kids to gather. So I try to, between projects, make sure that we get out there and that my kids still are active in gathering cedar bark, gathering camas, the process of getting logs, whether it's actually going in the woods and actually getting them, which is a long drawn out process, that I have done, or if it's just learning how to work with the forestry to be able to bring those logs here. And working with the different resources. So that's just part of our daily life.